and have a look at the links below when we're done with this video. But this is an interesting question. It's something I've suspected for quite a while. And during Trump's recent speech at the Israeli Knesset, with a Q, he said some things that really make me believe now that there's a white hat faction operating within the Israeli military that's part of this international coalition pushing back against the cabal. And I call it the Knesset because that whole event was fake. It's staged. I mean, Bibi's dead. Miriam Adelson, she's dead. They could have had that thing somewhere in a studio in the United States for all we know. The whole thing is a movie, as you know. But before I get to the main topic, we want to establish some precedent of Jews and Israelis who were anti-communist, anti-Zionist, anti-globalist. There are. So I've never been one to shy away from the Jewish question. You can't talk about this international cabal without talking about the Jewishness at its core. That would be like talking about the mafia and not mentioning the fact that they're Italian or Sicilian in particular. Just wouldn't be honest. So I've never shied away from that fact, but at the same time, we do have ample precedent and examples of Jews and Israelis who are definitely opposed to this. I'm just giving you a few right here. The late Alfred Lilienthal is an American. Wrote a book years ago, wrote several books, many articles. What Price Israel? Hardcore, anti-communist, anti-Marxist, anti-Zionist. And you think I'm rough. Man, he pulled no punches. I read his book years ago. Alfred Lilienthal. Here's another one, Jack Bernstein. The Life of an American Jew in Israel. And the cover, you had the Star of David with a hammer and sickle inside. There's another book, Farewell to Israel, with the same dual logo, the hammer and sickle, inside the Star of David. He wrote a lengthy essay once titled My Life as an American Jew in Racist Marxist Zionist Israel, or something like that. And it's interesting, according to Bernstein, and I've heard this many places, the Sephardic minority of Jews they're kind of like second-class citizens. It's the Khazarians, the Ashkenazi, who run everything, and they kind of look down on the Sephardics. Sephardics, they're also derivatives of converts of North Africa. So they tend to have a little bit olivey skin, okay, but it's a very racist society. The Khazars, the Ashkenazi, who make up maybe, I don't know, 80%, they run everything. And there is that element of racial discrimination. We won't even talk about the tiny minority of Ethiopian Jews who are straight up black. They're at the bottom of the totem pole. So he calls it racist Marxist Zionist Israel. And this guy here is legend, Mordecai Vanunu. He was a nuclear technician who, in 1986, spilled all the beans, big-time whistleblower, on what he called Israel's nuclear bomb factory at Dimona. This is what got Kennedy killed, because he was insisting upon inspections of Dimona. And Vanunu, who was from the inside, he had inside information. He leaked it to a British newspaper, and boy, were they pissed. Let me just read you. This is just from the Standard Wiki article, the story of Vanunu. He revealed details of Israel's nuclear weapons program to the British press in 1986. He was subsequently lured from Britain to Italy by the Mossad, where he was drugged and abducted and secretly transported to Israel and ultimately convicted in a trial held behind closed doors. He spent 18 years in prison, and about half of that was in solitary confinement, which is actually against Israeli law. They tortured this guy. And even when they released him, he's still alive. He's under like restrictions. Can't leave the country, and he's been wanting amnesty in Europe. Nobody will have him. They hate Vanunu. But again, an anti-Zionist whistleblower. And, what motivates someone like Vanunu and many others is they know what they're doing is wrong. This whole greater Israel expansion project that Netanyahu wanted to implement. And they also understand that to do something like that requires World War III, probably involving Russia and China. That's how you redraw borders. You have to blow up the world first. It's insanity. There's a lot of people in Israel are aware of that. So not everybody votes for the Likud party. Even though they are the majority party, they win a lot of elections, you cannot absolve all those Israelis who voted for scum like Netanyahu and Sharon, etc. There is an opposition to that. So we mustn't think that 100% of Israelis, 100% of Jews are down with the Greater Israel Project. A lot of them are. Let's not pretend that it's an insignificant minority, but a lot of them are not. And again, I'm just trying to set the foundation for my thesis here that there's a white hat faction working with the Q operation in Israel. Headline, the Israeli army is facing the biggest refusal crisis in decades. This is from, I think, the Times of Israel. Subtitle, over 100,000 Israelis have reportedly stopped showing up for reserve duty. While their reasons differ, the scale demonstrates the war's waning legitimacy. And this has been going on for a long time, long before this fake war. A big movement in Israel. They call it the courage to refuse. So, you know, we know the circumstances, all of the treachery behind the establishment of Israel, dating back to the Balfour Declaration, 1917, and then the Nakba, which began in 1948, and all the wars and the evictions and the killings, etc. But, you know, Israel's not going away. Okay, it's already established now. But there are many Israelis who are just content to live in what is now defined as Israel and be at peace with Palestinians and to integrate more in terms of commerce and relations with their Arab neighbors. Steve Pieczenik, he's an American Jew. I think a lot of you people have heard of this gentleman. The guy is a white hat, total white hat, CIA, but he's a CIA white hat. Anti-communist, anti-Zionist, anti-Mossad, 9/11 inside job. He even says Sandy Hook was fake, staged. He's solid as you can get. Check out his videos online. I think one of my videos, I have an excerpt with him in there. So again, not all Jews and not all Israelis are Zionists or whacked out globalist Marxists. A lot of them are actually strongly opposed to both of those rancid ideologies. Now, this brings us to Trump's appearance, that movie scene, that's what it was, at the Knesset with a Q. It was all staged. Bibi's dead, Adelson's dead, half the people in that room are wearing masks. I don't even know where they held that event. Who knows if that's even the real Trump, but that's fake. It's all part of the movie. Where the movie's going, we don't know yet. I'm going to set forth some scenarios, though. But during his speech, and by the way, during that speech, he threw a lot of jabs. And Netanyahu and Israel and Adelson. You know, there's an art form to cutting somebody up and making a joke about it and laughing at it and doing it in a friendly way. And that's what he did. Lots of comms. But this one here, for me, was the most intriguing and kind of compelling. It really leads me to believe that, yes, there is a white hat faction within Israel. Because if you think about it, for Israel to be under submission like this, and it includes their media, I track this stuff. Times of Israel, Haaretz, Jerusalem Post, it's just like the New York Times. Everything changed. They're being told what to write and what to print. To achieve that level of dominance over Israel, it's hard to believe this could have come just from the outside. It doesn't make sense. There has to be an inside faction within the Israeli government, establishment, particularly the military. But during his speech, Trump gives a shout out to General Eyal Zamir, who became he's the chief of staff of the Israeli Defense Forces. He's the number one guy. He only got that position a few months ago, March 2005. Here's a headline: the general who said no to Netanyahu. It's a fake Netanyahu, but this is a movie. Inside Eyal Zamir's battle for Gaza. So he has been scripted to be the guy to tell Netanyahu, enough of this shit, make a deal. Okay? And during the speech, Trump points to him. And the general gives a thumbs up back to him. And here's what Trump said at this moment. You know, pointing at General Zamir, This guy is central casting. Let's put him in a movie. Look at him. Great job. And my people loved working with you. They loved it. They worked so well together. What does that mean? My people work so well with you? His people are the Q people. And they work so well with this general from Central Casting. Let's put him in a movie. So Trump is telling you that General Zamir is an actor, part of the Q operation. Now, I don't know if he's like an invented character, and I'm not saying he's wearing a mask. It seems like he has a military career. But this would be exactly, this would fit that scenario that I'm talking about white hats in the Israeli military who know that madmen like Netanyahu will blow up the freaking planet, get us all killed. This is crazy. This whole Greater Israel project, expanding the country from the Tigris to the Euphrates. They don't want none of that. It would make perfect sense. And I don't see any other way that it can be. There has to be a white hat faction in Israel that's doing all this, pulling off all of these movie scenes, controlling their media. And that to be from Trump was like the ultimate tell, as they say in poker. And Central Casting, there's a website, centralcasting.com. Sign up to work as a paid background actor in film and television. That's what they do. You need an actor to fill like a certain role, or you need a rent-a-mob, you call Central Casting. And Trump has beaten that term to death. He's used it over and over and over. Oh, this guy's Central Casting. This general's Central Casting. So-and-so Central Casting. He's telling you that what did the Q post say? What makes a movie good? Great actors. So this character, Zamir, is Central Casting. He's got to be an Israeli white hat. And that's really reassuring to know that that element, that sane element in Israel, is now going to gain power. So in due time, a normal Israel is going to emerge, content within its own borders and everybody getting along. And it seems that's where we're headed now. However, to just go there now would be a rather disappointing end to the movie. And I'm going to set forth 4 possible scenarios that we can go with this now. Number 1, at some point in the near future, coming weeks, months, Bibi stages a false flag attack to blame on the big bad Arabs or Iran, and it backfires and he's exposed. And that will just blow everything up, and then all the truth will come forth, Epstein Island, 9/11, etc. A second scenario could be that he simply breaks the ceasefire unilaterally. He starts bombing Gaza again. Maybe next month or the month after. If that's the way it's scripted, he would have to do it soon, because now you've got this negative opinion of Netanyahu and Israel. It's at its peak, or rather at its low. And so you want to do that before people forget about the so-called genocide and the so-called famine, and then it would seem like a new event. So if they go that route where he breaks the ceasefire and it blows up in his face, that too will lead to total truth and the final downfall of Netanyahu, and all the other criminality will be exposed publicly. The third scenario is there's no false flag, there's no breaking of the ceasefire, but perhaps there will be an internal investigation of that fake false flag of 10/7, which was all fake, but they could present it and present in such a way that Netanyahu and Mossad gets blamed. And this will be done internally within Israel, possibly led by our Central Casting General. In that case, it would be the Israelis leading the lynch mob to hang, literally, Netanyahu. And then from there, once 10/7 is exposed, it's a hop, skip, and a jump to 9/11, Epstein's Island. So all of these scenarios would work out perfectly. And then there's one more scenario, which I hope and pray is not the one that has been already scripted, where everything just proceeds nicely and happily, and Israel gets along forever with its neighbors, and Palestine gets a state. I mean, which is all going to ultimately happen anyway. But if there's no drama involved, then to me that would be an indication that they're not going to disclose everything to the normies. They just took out the deep state players, executed them all. And they don't want to upset the normies, and they don't want to create instability by letting all the truth out. And we'll just proceed as normal to a better world. That would suck, and I don't think that will be the case, frankly. But you have to prepare yourself in case it is. Because if they go that route, how are you going to teach the normies a lesson? The normies need to know everything. Okay? If they can't handle it, too bad. Let them kill themselves. That's my feeling. So, but in either event, everything is a movie, and everything's been done, and everything's going great. We just have to see what the next scene will be. And I'm just hoping that between now and the end of the year, one of these dramatic scenarios comes to pass.